You probably noticed something different here. Well, this is the Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast. This is Jason Carr, and that's John Meyer. You might remember we left the boys with Travis in a pickle with Mr. Shaw when they were trying to get Lee 1 away from that Pinto.
On this episode of the Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast, we talk with Travis Bell. If you don't know who he is, he rescued Lee 1, the very first General Lee.
You're listening to the Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast with John CustomCarNerd Meyer and Jason Old Car Guy Carr. We'll be bringing you gearheads everything you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive?
So we're sitting there like going, okay. And then so we hear something come down the road, and not so many people live on this road. And woof, up the driveway. You know, here goes the Astro van. Boom. And I'm like, shoot, man, Mr. Shaw is ticked off, man.
He passed right by you, did not stop.
Yeah, didn't say how y'all are. Peace out, Girl Scout. He didn't say, What are you damn Yankees doing down here? He drove past us and up the driveway, which was about a 2-acre driveway. And of course, you know, it's the gravel that washes out with the ruts in it. Like it was just, and you know, you guys, they had the red Georgia clay peeking through all this mess. And now it's raining and washing down in this. And I'm like, and they're all looking at me like, you go talk to him. I'm like, bro, I don't want to say you know,
rock, paper, scissors on who's going to talk.
So about 10 minutes goes by and there's nothing. I'm like, all right, well, hell, it's time to go figure out what's going on with Mr. Shaw. And he's about a half an acre coming down the driveway, and I could see him. So I was like, well, I'll just start walking up that way. And we meet out about the Pintos. And he simply said, hey, Travis, I talked to June, and I apologize for being so ill toward you. He said, I just wanted you to know that I do not work on a Sunday. And, he's a very religious man, and he went to church that morning. And, my buddy that it was about 20 feet behind me was like, dude, he probably got some religion while he was at church. I'm like, no, he literally cussed me out in his driveway and then went to church, so he felt pretty bad. And I was very nice to him and very nice to his grandson for the last year. And, he confirmed that June did tell me to come on down. So I came on down, and he told me to see what I could do, and I did it. So at this point, it's on the trailer, or it's on the flatbed. And, we don't know what we're going to pay for this thing because no one has negotiated a price. No one has even said if it's for sale, if he wants us to roll it back off and haul ass. So he goes, well, the NASCAR race is on. Why don't you come up here and we'll sit down and talk about that old car? And so he had a lean-to on the side of the house, and had a picnic table and a TV out there, and NASCAR was on. So we're sitting there watching, me, Cliff, and my two friends that went with me are watching NASCAR with Cliff Shaw on a Sunday in the rain. And I said, Cliff, I got a hell of a drive home. And I did. And I said, I need to know what I'm going to give you for this thing. And I do appreciate you selling it to me, kind of thing. And he said, well, what do you give me for it? And, at that point, you don't know if you're going to give $2,000 or $20,000 for this thing because he knows what he has. And I said, well, Cliff, I didn't bring a pocket full of money, but I brought enough to where I think it's at. He said, well, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to make this quick. We're going to make it short. And I have done this probably 10 times since Mr. Shaw showed me how to do this. He, of course, his overalls, he takes a pin out of his overalls. He said, Travis, I'm going to write a number on my hand. I'm going to give you the pin. You're going to write a number on your hand. We're going to turn them over. And now we're going to know where to start at. And that was the coolest thing. Of course, I'll be 50. I was, in the late 20s, early 30s. And I was like, damn, Mr. Shaw's cool as a cucumber, man. He is rad, right? But the problem was Mr. Shaw did bam, like literally 2 seconds and then handed it to me. And I got my friends looking over my shoulders, and they're like, what do you write? I mean, John, what do you write? Jason, what do you write on your hand at that point? You have found the first generally the holy grail of the Dukes of Hazzard. Everything else is a replica. So you don't quite own it yet, but you can run down the driveway and start the flatbed and haul ass like it's yours, but it's not. You've just driven. So what do you write, John?
I don't put the price on the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
I mean, you're standing there. I mean, the Nazis haven't melted yet. You have no idea the power of this thing.
That's right.
I mean,
and you've been a fan of the show since the first episode came on when we were on your father's lap waiting for the Incredible Hulk to come on.
Oh yeah.
On January 26, 1979, but
Yes.
It was replaced with the magic car that flew. And you have been the biggest fan your entire life, and you are this close from owning the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, right. I mean, I have no idea. The number that I know your number. The number I would have written down was $2,000.
Sure. Jason, are you in that neighborhood too?
Well, I probably would have been in that neighborhood, knowing the historic value, the TV value, the what that thing holds. I'm a car salesman. I'm a used car salesman is my day job.
Sure.
And I also know not to give up your hand right away.
Right.
And again, I know your number.
Yeah.
I probably would have been way high. I probably would have been like, you know what? If I put $2,000 on my hand, I'm probably going to insult the guy.
Sure. So, all of my friends are looking at me like Travis is about to spend a whole hell of a lot of money, but I simply wrote $500 on my hand, and that I just was like, we have to start somewhere. And, he could have told me to go fly a kite, take the damn thing off the truck. You just wasted all this time. I went to church, X, Y, insert all the crap here. So I wrote $500 on my hand, and Mr. Shaw turned his over and I turned mine over, and he had written $300 on his hand.
Wow.
And so I said, well, we'll meet in the middle, it sounds like. So I bought the first General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard for $400. And then he said, if you're interested in the police cars, I'll sell them to you both for the same money. So I gave him $1,200 and told him that I would see him again in the future.
Wow.
And I left, and I walked down the driveway, and all of my friends are like, why I would have, they're like, right, they're ready, that we brought $10,000 down there with us. So we were ready to spend some money, and they're looking at me, and I was like, let's talk about it when we get to South Carolina and put some wheels on this thing. So we towed it on the tow truck all the way to the Carolinas, put some wheels on it, put it back on the trailer, and took it back to Indianapolis. But
Now talk about a one-armed bandit. Looks like old Travis just scored Lee 1 for a song.
Did you trailer it? Did you trailer it covered?
No.
Okay.
No, it's sitting there flapping with the headliner still blowing around inside of it and everything else, and just the wheels that were on it when it was the green wrecked Richard Petty race car. His name slips me, and I can see him. He was so nice to me. Pete Hamilton won the 70. Yeah, he went for Richard Petty. So 1970 Daytona 500. Super nice guy, but he had a shop that butted up with H&H Henry Holman shop. And the wheels that were on the car in the television show were provided by him because they needed NASCAR wheels. And he had won for Richard Petty Racing. He won the 70 Daytona 500 in a Superbird. And anyhow, we had his wheels to put back on it again because we had already acquired those. And all we had to do is acquire the car. So we put the same wheels back on it and ran home back to Indianapolis with it.
So you went there with $10,000 in your pocket.
Yep.
were you prepared to walk away? And was money no object? What if you had written 10 grand on your hand and he had come back with 50?
We were either going to catch a case that day, or we were going to come back and give him a pocket full of money. So I don't know. It was probably sky's the limit at that point. You know, if there's no if he'd asked 20 grand for it, I'd have probably figured out how to. We only had 10. I'd be like, I'll see you in a minute, kind of thing.
Right.
There's at that point you're so invested in it. You've got to bring home the prize. So,
were you willing to walk if he said, "Get this thing off your trailer. It's still my car"?
I don't know. I knew we were going to come home with it. So I that's a great question, but I really don't know. I told everybody, I said, we're either going to buy a car or we're going to come out of there with a case. And by now, the statutes of limitations would have, I'd have probably stuck it away in my parents' barn. They had a barn back then. They no longer, they live in a little gated community now. So I don't know where the hell it would be now. But I was leaving with it one way or the other.
So you've got the remainder of the General Lee 1.
Yep.
You take it back to South Carolina. You take it back to your
took it to South Carolina and put the wheels back on it because, of course, I had no wheels and tires. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to roll. It had not rolled under its own power since it flew Saturday, November 11th, 1978. And then after that, it just became a prop. And so they had originally removed the two orange doors that had the 01s on it and put them on another car because it was easier to replace the doors than to repaint another set. Mm-hmm. They cut the taillight panel out of the 69 and put it into one of those 68s that Mr. Schischler had built because that way, they're relatively unidentifiable because now you have the grill out of a 68 or a 69 and a 68. If you smooth over the turn signals, which most of them did, the only thing you can identify is kind of the pointy dashboard for the 68. Mm-hmm. We had one door that was off of Lee 2 that was on the other side that had the 71s on it because it's a power window door and Lee 1 was not a power window car. And then we had, holes in the floorboard for where they had cut the roll bar out and put into what would be Mr. Schischler's third car that he built that he was to ship later. But that's another cool, rad story on where that car is. And so we take off with it with one door missing, Pete Hamilton's wheels back on it, and start heading back toward Indianapolis from the Carolinas with it. All this is all in the same day, like no sleep kind of thing. Let's go home kind of thing.
So other than I found the Ark of the Covenant, I've found, the best thing ever in automotive movie history. What are you thinking on your way home? I mean, put us inside Travis Bell's head on the way home driving in the rain.
Well, and we still can't tell anybody.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
We still can't tell anybody because the two police cars are left behind.
Right.
And we haven't gone and picked them up yet. So we had instructed the tow truck friend in South Carolina. I said, hey, over the next couple of weeks, go snap these up real quick, which he did. So once we got it back into, basically Indiana airspace, we kind of sat on it for a little bit. And at that point, I owned a website called GenerallyFanClub.com. We were going to do a Dukes of Hazzard or a General Lee Fan Club convention. And this is pre-Dukes Fest and all that crap. So I called Ben Jones, Cooter on the Dukes of Hazzard, and he had a fruit stand that turned into a, tourist trap. And I was like, hey, I want to unveil the first General Lee at a Dukes of Hazzard Fan Club convention. Can we bring, 2,000 of our closest friends down there? And so we made this convention thing in 2001. So we unveiled the car there with them and realized that it was very, very difficult to babysit because though it had sat, in the woods forever, and then it sat on my property in Indianapolis, when people realized what it was, they would pick paint off of it or pick roll bar padding off of it or things. So they had a piece of the original General Lee. And it became and it was painted with some rather toxic paint back in the day. And and kids would be jumping in and out of it. And it's got, very sharp edges on everything. And all we did is remove the pine needles and things out of it, lightly washed it, and that's it. And it just kind of sat there on the property for a while. But then like I said, we realized as we would go to these events, how difficult it was to babysit. And we actually have signs, they're probably still around here, that says, please do not pick paint and things like that.
Wow.
And it became very, very tough to babysit. We really had no idea what I was going to do with it at that point, because it is a disaster of a mess. Still has its motor, still has its transmission in it. The transmission tunnel is bent over the top of itself from when it landed on the ground and kind of crushed through. So if it were to be restored, it would be a heavy, heavy, heavy restoration. So I don't want to say the Dukes of Hazzard fans ruined it for me, but it became very, very difficult to enjoy yourself and keep one eye on it at all times. So because you would leave and go and do something, you'd come back with 50% less of the car, and everybody would have like a frame at their house with a chip of paint on it. So
Seems like some people can't keep their hands off Lee 1, and soon picking paint means picking a fight. We know you enjoy the Get Out and Drive podcast. John, let our listeners know how they can support the show.
Well, you can buy the show a gallon of gas.
Please explain.
You've heard of Buy Me a Coffee, right?
Oh, yeah.
But who needs coffee? We need a gallon of gas. Just go to our website, Get.Out.N.Drive.com, scroll to the bottom of any screen, and you'll see the Buy Us a Gallon of Gas link. Just click, and you'll help to keep our show running.
So you've got the car, and you're showing it off at this, this big festival. But at some point in time, the car gets sold, restored. How do we go from sitting in a big festival with lead paint and sharp edges and all this stuff to a complete restoration? How do we go from that, from one end to the other?
I had my own General Lee that I would drive a lot. I had not been in a fist fight since high school, and catching people pick paint off of the car led to probably the first fist fight that I had gotten into in years. And people don't, even if you own a General Lee right now and you go to Pizza Hut and have something to eat and you leave it out in the parking lot, somebody is sitting on your hood getting their picture taken with it because they don't realize that someone owns it. They still think Bo and Luke drive it and own it and whatever else. It's very, very, very difficult to drive a Hollywood star car, let alone the General Lee. So especially in the world in which we live, there was a group of 5 gentlemen that were out of Ohio that were Dukes of Hazzard fans. And they said, Travis, would you ever consider selling the car? And I said, oh, yes, we would consider, because at this point, I had it for 4 years. So we're fast forwarding to about 2004. I sold it to them for $20,000. And so they all pitched $5,000 a piece in it. And they toted it around for about a year or less. And then they realized how difficult it was to own the car.
Now
and
they've got the hot potato.
They have the problem, and it's their problem now. So a gentleman by the name of Marvin Murphy contacted me out of Florida, and Marvin had done well for himself. He was up there in years, but he was a very, very nice guy. And he had owned the convertible kit from Knight Rider and things. And he had kind of like the star car bug, but he would send me like a General Lee picture and said, hey, this one's for sale. And I'd be like, cool, you can buy that one, whatever. And then he'd send me one of the real Wayne Wooten 17 cars. And I go, you have to realize if you buy one of those cars, they are a disaster. They are very real, but they are a mess. Guys from Ohio recontacted me and said, hey, we're looking to sell this again. And I called Marvin Murphy and I was like, Mr. Murphy, I said, Lee 1 is for sale, but you realize it is an absolute, complete and total basket case. And he said, do you have everybody's information? Blah, blah, blah. I gave it to him. And Mr. Murphy called me back and said, hey, I'm going to be at Indianapolis International Airport on like Thursday. This is a Monday. We're going to ride over to Ohio and pick this car up. So you bought it? He said, yeah, I bought it off of them. And, I'm like, cool. So Mr. Murphy fly in, we drive over, probably 2 hours away, pick it back up, hook it back up, drove back. And he says, okay, I got a flight out here at 4:00. You might as well just drop me back off at the airport. And I'm like, looking at him, I'm like going, you got to get your car home, So I literally pulled into Indianapolis International Airport in a Ford Expedition back then, towing their trailer. We got their trailer with the deal, the same car exactly as I left it a year earlier. And I I said, Marvin, what are we going to do with this thing? And his exact words, getting his suitcase out, said, if someone spray painted all over the Mona Lisa, someone would have to fix it. And that someone is you.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, that's heavy, and, I'm a disc jockey, but I'm a car guy, but I'm not like a body shop car guy. And I've got body shop friends, but this is a restoration. Like, this is not a bumper cover thing. And Mr. Murphy, said, just let me know what I owe you. And they're like walking away. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? So I hired my friend who's a Mopar mechanic, and we pulled the motor and trans out of it. Then we had the rolling shell, and then we took the shell to Walter's Body Shop here on the south side of Indianapolis, who still do all my paint work to this day. I said, where do you want to start? And then we had one of the greatest pinstripers. He's still alive, Bob. I can't think of his Bikini Cadell. Anyhow, we had to have him come over because you could see the flag bleeding through the green paint. He said, do you care if I wet sand on the roof here? And I'm like, it's all got to get fixed anyhow. So he lightly wet sands the roof, and, the flag is coming back to life in front of your eyes and things like this. And you're like going, wow, this is so crazy. So then he had unveiled the flag, but we knew it said John Morende, and it beat the roof to death. But underneath Morende, it's all generally and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy, right? So we're wet sanding for half an evening, and we've got it all kind of revealed. And we have all the measurements we need for the flag, which is kind of tricky on the car, and all the generally text kind of changes from Georgia to California because they went to vinyl graphics versus hand paint. So we had everything, all the templates and everything we needed. And now this is pre AMD sheet metal. This is pre, order it and we'll have it, you need a quarter panel kind of thing. This is, where the hell are we going to get these parts from? And we had bought another complete 1969 Dodge Charger. We bought a 68 and a 69, but we bought another 69 that someone had turned into a lowrider project. God help them. And it was like on airbags and just this ridiculous mess, but it was straight as an arrow. No motor, no trans. I don't even think it had a dash, but it had every part we needed to complete the restoration of the car. So that car lost its life as we picked and cut parts off of that car to put onto Lee 1. And then, of course, the motor and trans got finished and done. You're looking for all these parts and pieces. The only aftermarket part in the whole car is the trunk pan. And everything else is 1969 sheet metal. We got it running and driving. It had jumped Saturday, November 11th, 1978. And we were going to unveil it November 11th. So I called John Schneider and I said, hey, what are you doing in Georgia on this day? And you're the one that supposedly jumped it on that day. So I called the college and asked them if I use the college. It happened to be like a Sunday, so they were kind of thin that day. And we had towed it back down to Georgia, and right where it landed in the TV show, we backed it out of the trailer and let Mr. Schneider back it out of the trailer and unveiled it back that it was alive and well, exactly with the crooked numbers on it and exactly as it appeared. So it just continued driving basically. So
wow,
it was crazy. And it probably took about a year and a half to restore the car, but it is running and driving still to this day on its same motor and trans that flew. Just the sheet metal has been obviously updated because there wasn't much left of it. So
does the car still wear the same restoration that
yes.
you gave it, or
it
has been a different restoration since?
No, it still is exactly as I turned it over when we sold it at Barrett Jackson. Whenever we sold it, I can't remember. It's been probably 10 years now. Mm-hmm. So, and everybody, car people sometimes think your Barrett Jackson experience, if that's where you're one to go, is the holy grail of experiences. And people saw that we were going to sell it and turn it over. And they, the year before, Barris had sold the Batmobile for an outrageous amount of money. And John Schneider stood on the roof of his car and stole his car there like 2 years before. And everybody's like, Travis, what do you think it's going to bring? What do you think it's going to bring? And by that time, we had already filmed like the Dukes of Hazzard movie, and we're on the downside of fandom of Dukes of Hazzard. But you still have to remember that this is simply a 1969 Dodge Charger with a goofy paint job and a flag and a backwards 10. Like it was everybody's like millions of this. And I go, man, I said, but they made 321 of these cars and over 600 police cars, and the amount of replicas. I mean, it doesn't really hit home that this thing is not going to bring huge money. And they were, going to do it on Saturday night and roll it out there and do all this stuff. And we're like, they're like, Travis, what do you expect? And I said, if it breaks $100,000, I'll be amazed. And they were just like, oh man, why are you shooting so low? I said, because I'm very realistic. I said, there's 17 real ones, plus a couple of more have been found, plus this one, it's Lee 1, but everything else is a replica. But what do you do with it if you buy it? So it was very weird to watch it happen because, it rolls out there and everybody's clap, clap, clap and all this stuff. But, and it took off. I mean, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. I'm like, dang, we are making money, bro. Like, here we go. Right. It was very weird to watch the minute that Bubba Watson from the Skybox bid on it. You'll watch on the footage, it hits a wall. Like everybody, he was bid up one time and he rebid, and everybody got out of his way and let him, it was kind of everybody knew not to bid against him because that was his dream car. And he had done a lot of, internet things that he was going to buy it, and just everybody got out of his way, and good for him. I think he had sold for 127,000 or something like that, which is more than what and everybody's like, oh, are you depressed? I'm like, dude, I gave $400 for this car. And a disc jockey and a luthier restored it for, let's say, 60,000. And so it probably doubled its money. It went on to, Bubba Watson was the greatest caretaker for that car and took a lot of flack for the car because that's when everything got heated over the Confederate flag. And he had to put out a lot of fires that were not his fault because of sponsorships. He had tweeted that he was going to take the flag off the roof of the car, blase this, and everybody's like, oh, kill Bubba Watson, and all the people that believe that the Dukes of Hazzard is a documentary were like, burn Bubba Watson on a stake, and I'm like going, it's his car. If he wanted to paint it pink, he can do whatever he wants to with it. But he never did. He just had to, he was supposed to, because he lives in Arizona, he was supposed to lead a pace lap at Phoenix with the car for a NASCAR race. And NASCAR said, if you cover the flag, you can. But so I told Bubba, I was like, hey, just put if you want to do this, put the logo of the racetrack on the roof on like one of those removable fatheads kind of sticker or something.
Right.
And Bubba was true to form. He was like, man, F these guys. I'm not going to do that. And I said, so then he put the tweet out. I knew he never did it. He put a little vinyl piece over it in case he ever had to drive it, but he never drove it again. They ruined it for him. So he never, so then he learned the hard lessons that I had learned. And he had it for about 10 years, and he's since sold it to a great guy that lives in Texas, and he has removed the vinyl on it, and it is exactly as it appeared. The only thing they did is change the windshield and changed like one more or the front seats, and that's about it. And it's still exactly as it appeared when it left my property. So I like to see it again. And they call me all the time for points and, where's this, or how do you start that, or what's so. But yeah, there's some terrific people own it now. So, and then it's really been in good hands ever since.
So Travis, we've been talking about this car now and this story for a bit. Maybe we can kind of wind this up with, how has this whole experience from start to finish, from the first time you said you wanted to find this car to the time we're at right now, how has this affected you? I know there's been some ups and downs, but I mean,
and I would hate to say it's been more downs because, I'm the most hated man in Hazard County because I restored the first General Lee, and they don't really realize how difficult it was to make that decision. And I was hired to do that, to restore the first General Lee, because I left it alone. If, I would do it all over again, I would be so much easier now to restore it. I would not change a thing. I don't miss, going to Dukes of Hazzard events. John Schneider still calls and said, hey, do you want to go and do this or do that? Like I said, I hate to say the fans ruined it, but, there are some diehards out there that, what's left when they call it a replica of the first General Lee. I'm like, dude, they reskinned the entire Statue of Liberty. and they still call the damn thing the Statue of Liberty. So
that's my biggest thing is the ship of Theseus.
That's
theory.
right.
How do you feel about that? Did you jack up the VIN tag and build a car underneath it? Is it the same car?
Yeah.
I mean, explain your thoughts of that.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, it would have been so much easier for me to just pull the dash out, put it in another 69 Charger and be like, Lee won. But I stayed true to form and rebuilt Lee 1. So, yeah, it's upsetting. But we are, 20 years past it right now or whatever else. And there's still, there was a website that had a message board thread that had 26 pages of the Trav ass files on how much they liked me so much about restoring the General Lee. And, Travis is this and Travis is that. But you know what? They're still doing the same thing and they're still answering the same questions. And where was this filming location? All the stuff that I had already knew. And I shared with the whole community 20 years ago, the Dukes of Hazzard community and the fans, but it bit me in the ass. But you'll find that with, a lot of people these are all my toys and I'm going to play with these toys and you're not allowed to play with these toys and these are my toys. I took Lee 1 and shared it with everybody, but then they picked crap off of it and then they would do this. And then when I restored it, they're like, hey, do you have any parts left over the car? Do you have any, is a front balance available? Is the whatever else? And I'd be like, well, yeah, we were told to, Mr. Murphy said he wanted nothing of the green car to still exist because that was not the General Lee. Mm-hmm. And they're like, would you sell it to me? But they would never say that they got it from Travis Bell. And I'd be like, don't be those people. So yeah, it's been difficult, but moving on past that, it lit a fire on some other things on trying to find celebrity cars and things that exist. It made a lot of terrific friends out of the people that saw through the BS and the like I said, the folks that believe that the Dukes of Hazzard is a documentary. I mean, we're talking about this car that most people would be like, yes, the General Lee or whatever, but still to this day, the gentleman that owns it still calls me on tips and pointers and what should I do with it and whatever else. So I'm forever the caretaker for this car. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. And I wouldn't change that the fans are jerks, but there's asshole fans in every community out there. And anybody who listens to this or watches this will be like, oh yeah, if you're a Knight Rider fan, you don't buy from the Italian people. You only buy from but if you buy from the U.S. people, you wait 2 years. I'm like, man, I want to build my car tonight. I'm going to send my money to Italy, or, the Back to the Future DeLorean guys. I mean, they fight like cats and dogs. And I'm like, all right, well.
Before you know it, National Get Out and Drive Day 2023 will be here.
Yeah, it's October 1st this year.
And I heard we already had someone sign up for Drive Day 2023 before we even started promoting it.
Yes, Nathan Lipinski, the owner of Lipinski Auto Body. He signed up before I did. Nathan wasn't just the first to sign up this year. He's been one of the first to sign up since the very first National Get Out and Drive Day.
We'll be giving out more details and some exciting news about Drive Day 2023 very soon. Subscribe to the Get Out and Drive podcast on your favorite platform and follow our social media pages to be the first to know.
It isn't any different from Hazard County.
I stopped going on the Herbie the Love Bug fan club board.
I did too, years ago.
Holy cow. It got to a point that I was like, you can't have this light or this part or this color interior and this and that, and everybody's beating the hell out of each other, and I had to switch it off.
Yeah, and the stripe goes up and over the vinyl or over the top, or does it go over the top, or which way does it go? And did they really paint the stripe onto the rag top and everything? I mean, it's just, Jesus.
200 different ways to build one car because it was 200 different ways in 6 movies.
Right. And so, it's the lesser of 200 evils.
Oh my.
Well, if we go back to our teenage years, we're growing up and we're trying to learn what brand of pickup truck is our favorite, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever, and even to this day, you got guys butting heads with the Chevy, Ford, Dodge, and even Toyota now. This takes that to a whole new level because you're not just dealing with car aficionados, you're dealing with super fans.
Yes,
of a TV show and a huge generation of people that some who are like me don't know every single detail of the show. I just enjoyed it for the entertainment value, the car chases, Daisy Duke. And some people don't even know that, and I had to look it up myself, that race car, that 71 race car, was in the episode called Repo Man.
Yep.
Right? I never would have known that. I didn't even know they named the episodes. Go figure. Like, the point that I'm trying to make is for anyone who's listening right now, take something that you cherish and something that you love right now, whether it's cars, whether it's music, whatever it happens to be. There's somebody out there that doesn't like it the same way that you do, or they don't like your genre of music. They don't like the car you drive. They don't like how you vote, whatever it happens to be. We don't want to get into that, but the idea is that we try to bring everybody together as a community. And the reason why we had Travis on the show today is we wanted to share that story because A, it's an awesome story, but B, there's history there, history within the car, history within the show, history within the automotive niche of movie car collecting. And I think that you being able to share your story with us, Travis, today was absolutely an honor. And I'm glad that we get to share that with our fans. And I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show, because I think there's a lot of people that are going to enjoy listening to how this car came to be, even through the ups and downs.
Yeah, and Mr. Shaw has since passed away, but his property has been completely, gutted. There's nothing left on the property. I just drove past it 3 days ago. I haven't been down there since the day I pulled it, and but it's completely different. It's nice and it's grass, and all the cars are gone. So, and all the transmissions are gone and everything. So it looks completely different. So if we wouldn't have saved it, it would have been gone too. And the Dukes of Hazzard community fights a good fight because, of course, they are cruising around with a hate symbol on the roof of their car, and it matters who you ask. It could be the Confederate battle flag, or it could be a hate symbol. I sure wouldn't show up at John's house in a Chevette with a swastika on the roof of it, but someone had taken that symbol and turned it into a hate symbol. And I always got the problem driving my own General Lee, where the kid would be handing me my food at McDonald's and have no idea why I'm driving this goofy car with a rebel flag or Confederate flag on the roof, because he had never seen the show. And I just looked like some racist jerk driving around with this thing. But the problem was the racist jerk driving around with the two flags hanging off the back of his Ford that's just trying to push everybody's buttons. I would drive by him. He'd be like, yes. I'd be like, no. I mean, like, man, I don't want to be a part of your whole thing. So I always tell the Dukes of Hazzard people that if they ever get into this big toss-up match over the Confederate flag, which is very tough because that is my childhood show, and Uncle Jesse, you could not cuss in his house, and you would have to pray before every meal. But everybody forgets that stuff. And I would just simply tell them that we, John, Jason, myself, can watch the Cosby Show right now, but we cannot watch the Dukes of Hazzard on TV. And if you think of it like that, you go, damn, that sucks, but that's just the world in which we live in. So I've been without a General Lee. I've had the gentleman that owns my car. I sold mine about 4 years ago. 6'4" and bald. It's kind of rough to drive around in a car with a Confederate flag on the roof of it. But that's, I have the opportunity to purchase it back, but it's been fun. I had my fun while and I still, it's an honor to be friends with a lot of these people. And like I said, it never really hit home until just 3 days ago, driving back past Mr. Shaw's property. He's probably passed away about 15 years ago. And if we hadn't had rescued it, it would have never been rescued, and the police cars would have gone too. So,
now I know we talked about the General Lee this whole time, and we can certainly cut this if you wish. What were you hinting to what you did this weekend? Or can you not say that?
Yeah,
yet?
No, I can say now. Couldn't say 4 days ago.
From Hazard County to the Southern Classic. Let's see what Travis gets himself into next.
Cruise on over to our website, Get.Out.N.Drive.com, for all the info you never wanted to know about our podcast. Hit us up on our listener hotline, be the first to know what's happening, get industry news, and grab your Get Out and Drive merch. Connect with us on social media, Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on Twitter at Get.Out.N.Drive.Pod.
What drives you?
Can you use that, Paul?
Yes.
Please don't start over.
Please don't ever start over.
Whew.